and we love it when people stumble on Seabrook. That's probably the most rewarding thing. Some people have different reactions to Seabrook. There's kind of a shock if they were not expecting it and they just literally stumble on it. They haven't heard anything about it.
Right.
It can be shocking to people in good ways and bad ways.
Yep.
A lot of people sometimes go, what are these people doing and why are they here, and is this a fake town, and things like that. But people that actually do their homework and really understand what this place is all about usually come away hopefully a little inspired and hopefully also realizing like this is a place we want to come and hang out. It's in our backyard. If you're from the Puget Sound region, that we're essentially building Washington's beach town.
Welcome to Future Driven. I'm Adam Lejeune-Kopp, and on this podcast, we talk about challenges and wins in business. See the vision, drive the future. Okay, so welcome to episode 38 of the Future Driven podcast. I'm really excited to have Casey Roloff from Seabrook, Washington. Casey, did I say Roloff right?
Yeah, that's good enough.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Well, Casey, hey, thanks for jumping on. Before we get started, and I want to hear a lot about your background and how Seabrook came, but I'll tell you a quick little story about how I literally kind of stumbled across Seabrook. My family and I were camping just north of Seabrook. I forget the campground area that we were in. And I was there. I'm not a huge camper. My wife and my kids love it, but I appreciate a little bit, nice food and everything. So we were there for a couple of days, and finally I'm like, babe, I just want to get a really nice meal. Where can we go? I'm like, I'll just drive wherever, and I'm searching. I found this really nice hip, like Mexican place, and it's just like 10 minutes away. So I said, look, it's really close. We'll go. I don't know. I mean, it seems too good to be true, if you will, right? We felt like we were out in the middle of nowhere. And we stumbled across Seabrook, and, there we were at this, I can't remember the name of it, but it was across the street from a little market and a beautiful little street that we were on. We had a nice little lunch. And I said, what is this place? We've got to go check it out. And we started driving around, and we kept driving around, and my wife was just like, couldn't believe the common spaces that you had, the houses and everything that was built up. It was really beautiful. And so we headed out of town, and I saw your sign that says established in 2005. Is that right? 2005?
4. Yeah.
2004. And I was just over the moon. I couldn't believe that town, your town, had only been there since 2004. So I think we drove around a little bit longer, went on the beach and everything, and then double backed around. And I think we literally drove every single street, and I found somebody working in construction. I flagged him over, and I'm like, has this town really only been here since 2004? And he gave me a little rundown, and he was saying he was walking into house number 720 or something like that. And he had been there from the beginning. So it was just a really cool experience that I had with Seabrook. And so I did a bunch of research, found you on LinkedIn, and now here you are on the podcast. So, hey, thanks for taking the time, and thanks for that great lunch that day.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. And we love it when people stumble on Seabrook. That's probably the most rewarding thing. Some people have different reactions to Seabrook. There's kind of a shock if they were not expecting it and they just literally stumble on it. They haven't heard anything about it.
Right.
It can be shocking to people in good ways and bad ways.
Yeah.
A lot of people sometimes go, what are these people doing and why are they here, and is this a fake town, and things like that. But people that actually do their homework and really understand what this place is all about usually come away hopefully a little inspired and hopefully also realizing like this is a place we want to come and hang out. It's in our backyard. If you're from the Puget Sound region, that we're essentially building Washington's beach town from scratch. I mean, a lot of people would go down to the Oregon coast.
Yep.
Cannon Beach is the most popular beach town. Gearhart, Manzanita, and we actually lived on the Oregon coast before we started Seabrook, so we understand the Oregon coast really well. And we saw this literally massive void for meeting the expectations of people in the Puget Sound, what they actually wanted. And there's a lot more behind that, but yeah, wherever you want me to start, I'm happy to.
Well, take me back a little bit to the beginning. If you established in 2004, kind of what did the first couple of years look like, or how did you, I guess first question is, how do you stumble upon the idea or the land and the concept? That just seems like such a large undertaking. How did that come about?
Well, I always like to talk about our humble beginnings. I was a terrible student. I graduated from high school with a 1.3 GPA. I didn't want to go to college. I never took any college prerequisites. Then I met my wife, Laura, who saved me. We were high school sweethearts, and I went to community college and then finished at University of Puget Sound in Tacoma. Got a business degree. She got an art degree. And to help pay for tuition and just school, I started a house painting business in 1993 with $1,000 Home Depot credit card. And literally that, I like to think of them as my angel investors, Home Depot, because it allowed me to start my own business and become an entrepreneur. And that's that's really what if I were to describe myself, I'm really an entrepreneur. I saw, before Seabrook, I saw an opportunity and had no experience or background in it, but I was able to connect the dots and make it happen. But anyway, so we moved actually right after college down to the Oregon coast, Central Oregon coast. Again, had no home building background or land development background, but that was actually a good thing because we were able to look at things through a new lens.
Sure.
And we were always drawn to great old neighborhoods with alleys and sidewalks and narrow streets. And my wife actually grew up in we're both from the Portland area, and she grew up in a neighborhood called Selwood. And she could walk to school and walk to the store and walk to the coffee shop. And I grew up in the suburbs, which were all automobile driven, and everything was, hey mom, can you take me here? Hey dad, can you take me there? Because nothing was within walking distance. And so again, hadn't really this stuff was all starting to culminate, so to speak.
Yep.
And so in 95 we designed our first house, built our first house. We put a lot of thought and care into the design. We like designing smaller houses that have more thoughtful spaces, and rather than just bigger is better mentality, we definitely have more focus in the finer details and just making really comfortable, livable spaces. So from 95, nobody would give us a loan in 1995 to build the house. A group of doctors loaned us money at 14% interest, $150,000 loan, built our first house, and then it just literally snowballed from there. So from 95 until 2000, we were designing and building custom homes for our customers. We built like 25 houses, something like that.
Okay.
And then, my, big aha kind of entrepreneurial moment was in 2000 when I learned about this place called Seaside, Florida. And if you haven't heard of Seaside, Florida, they actually filmed the Truman Show there.
Okay.
It is the most celebrated new development of our generation, which you're like, well, I've never even heard of it. So how is it celebrated? Well, again, I mean, they filmed a major movie there, but
right.
Any urban planning school or architecture school in the US has a lot of discussion about Seaside. It's essentially a laboratory.
Okay.
What the Seaside story is that they came to the realization that for hundreds and thousands of years, we were designing the most beautiful towns, villages, and cities around the world. All of your ancestors, my ancestors, and those that are listening, they were town builders, they were city builders, they were building at a pedestrian scale because everything had to be walkable. Our farms were out on the edges of town. Kids walked to school. Kids walked to Saturday markets. They were very independent because life didn't require a car.
Right.
So in the 20s and 30s, when the automobile came into the picture, that's when we went from designing at a pedestrian scale and designing in a very artistic and beautiful way, and we dumbed it down. We started to build what's now described as suburban sprawl, and everything is about the automobile. And there's a lot of impacts to our life that suburbia has had. I mean, health, our environment, and just our social interaction with people. It's big. It's really big. And suburban sprawl is essentially a failed experiment. We have more dependency on oil, petroleum products to build freeways and highways. We're commuting longer, spending more time in our cars, seeing our kids less. Again, they're less independent as they were in older neighborhoods and pre-car development. And so what Seaside did was they said, hey, we were actually really good at designing beautiful towns that were walkable. Let's bring back the art of town building. So in 1981, they had 80 acres of land down on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and they decided to build a town from scratch. And it's basically brought back, again, this art of town building, but also this revival in old cities, towns, villages to embrace these places rather than like move on to greener pastures, right, and more suburbia. So like, for example, the Pearl District in Portland, and even South Lake Union. I mean, if you talk to people from South Lake Union or any of the people that were in the beginning, they were inspired by Pearl District. Well, the Pearl District was inspired by Seaside. And it was basically that urban life is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. Suburbia and suburban developers convinced us that, hey, we can get you away from the riffraff and the dirty, smelly cities and towns, and we're going to build you this greener life. Now, the pandemic has not been kind to Seattle or Portland. They're two very messy cities right now, and a lot of people are struggling to live in those places. But pre-pandemic, they were vibrant, unbelievable cities, and very walkable, bikeable. And so basically what Seabrook is all about is bringing back this art of town building. And so when we saw Seaside, we're like, it was our mission, like, we want to build a town. So in 2000, we designed our first basically village, and it was on the Oregon coast. It was called Bella Beach. We were 28 and 29 years old. Nothing was selling. The average days in the market were 270 days on the market. And so when we went to the banks, you can imagine what they were saying, like, Casey, whatever you do, don't become a developer. There's so many failed developments. Why would you do this? Just keep building houses. You've got a good business going. And we said, well, we're going to build this, and we'll find the money somewhere. And the reason that nobody's buying anything is because there's nothing compelling enough to buy. And we're going to design and build something that people are actually going to fall in love with and they're going to want to buy. And so, a bank out of Southern Oregon loaned us $1.4 million. We designed a 55 lot community called Bella Beach. In the first 90 days, I had a little 18-foot travel trailer, and we sold out half the community. We told the story about people walking and sitting on front porches and getting to know their neighbors, and playing Frisbee in a park, and again, just really having a simpler way of life, rather than, again, big house, big lot, You don't know your neighbors. You just know your neighbors by the cars they're driving into their garages, which is what 90% of the people live in today.
So how long did that take you from start to finish? What was it, Bella what?
Bella Beach, it was started as 55 lots. It was just south of Lincoln City, north of Depot Bay, central Oregon coast. And so we'd actually expanded to about 110. So we had to buy more land because it was a frenzy. So we sold it out in about a year. And again, we were 28 and 29, and we were like, we're going to build an entire town from scratch. If we can sell in a market that the average days on the market is 270, sell out of this place. We paid our development loan off in 4 months, and we're like, we're going to do this. And we were young and naive enough to like take this on and not think about all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
So at that time, we started looking on the Oregon coast, and then we thought back to our trips into Olympic National Park along the ocean, camping and hiking, and we're like, man, this Washington coastline is spectacular. And we couldn't understand why. Well, of course, Olympic National Park is protected. You can't do anything there, and that's a great thing. But when we look at the development south of the national park, most of the development was, again, because it was designed in the 50s and 60s, it was very suburban. So it was all more about the car, and you have retail spaces and restaurants that literally didn't even have sidewalks attaching to them. They want you to park in their parking lot, and then if you want to go to the next door shop, you got to get in your car and go park in the next door parking lot. It's nonsense. And so we looked at places like Cannon Beach. We're like, well, we can build this from scratch. We've seen it done now. And so the founders of Seaside actually gave us the playbook on how to build a town from scratch. So in 2002, we first set foot on this ground, and we bought 250 acres for about $2.5 million. And we were able to pay cash for it from our proceeds from our other development. So we were, again, young and naive and had a pocket full of money. And so we bought this land. And now on the Oregon coast, this would have been $100 million piece of property.
Right.
Because everybody had forgotten about the Washington coast and just didn't think anything really great could happen here. And we believed it could. And so we, bought the land, got approved for an entire town. And in 2004, again, broke ground. We had over 320 reservations that in place. I mean, it was again, talk about a frenzy. It continued from our first neighborhood to Seabrook, and we just started building this town. Now, my friends from Seattle, they're like, Casey, you're crazy. Don't do anything out there. You need to stay on the Oregon coast. And I would tell them, like, if I blindfolded you and brought you to this site and you saw how beautiful and spectacular it was, you'd think you're on the Oregon coast, or you'd think you're in Olympic National Park.
Right.
And so I had to, some of my friends, I had to do that. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. And again, the locals here, most everyone just thought this was doomed for failure. The New York Times actually wrote an article about Seabrook, and it was kind of this, very New York Times-ish kind of article about all the failures that have happened on the Washington coast. And they were kind of like basically saying, oh, this is the next big failure. And that was back in 2007, I think. And they were, needless to say, they were wrong.
Well, okay. So 2004, you started with 250 acres. Roughly how many lots was that park gonna be?
About 500.
500.
And so we've built about 500 homes today.
Today, there's only 500? Or there's
only 500, yeah. You said 700, but it's actually about 500, yeah.
Okay, so my numbers are wrong. Whatever number he told me was in the hundreds.
Yeah.
I was.
Well, there's a lot of numbers. We now own 700 acres, and we're only a quarter of the way built. So Seabrook will actually be, it's the first town, but when you build walkable communities, you want to have retail districts in every area. Think about Ballard and Madison Park and Queen Anne. They all have their own retail districts.
Yep.
So we're essentially, this whole area is about to really grow into like these urban walkable towns and villages on the ocean.
So your goal is around 2,000 homes?
Approximately, yeah.
Yeah. And right now, the last summer, if you will, that I experienced Seabrook, it had about 500.
Correct.
It had a nice retail area. You had, communal kind of town hall-ish looking kind of courtyard in the middle there.
Mhm.
So does the property go all the way to the beach as well? So you cover how
Yeah,
many?
it's on the ocean. We have about a mile of ocean front,
Okay.
and we have about almost a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles, like that goes from like north to south. It's a big piece of property, and then we front, we front 600 acres of public land. So we have a 160-acre mountain bike park that's going to continue to expand. I mean, an amazing mountain bike park that Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance designed and built. They're the same guys that did Doofy Hill. But anyway, so yeah, we're just getting started here.
That's amazing. So just getting started, it's been almost 20 years of of growth here, right?
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about something I just don't know anything about, like the municipality of it all, like the common spaces, the police and fire, and how
So
do you manage all that?
thankfully we're supported by Grays Harbor County. So we're in Grays Harbor County, and so we have a brand new public sewer system, brand new public water system. We have power. We have fiber out here, which is again part of the reason our future is so bright, because so many people are going to be working remotely, and we're going to have probably a gig to everybody's house as we start to connect this fiber to the town. And then yeah, so we have state patrol, because this is actually a state road out in front of Seabrook, and then we have county patrol, and they're very good to us. And this has been a huge boom for Grays Harbor County as far as jobs. There's hundreds of people. We have about 200 employees at peak, and there's probably 300 to 500 people out here building, subcontractors, general contractors, working in shops, working in the retail district. This was one of the most economically depressed counties in the state. So job creation has been really important to this area. And we've tried to be a catalyst for that.
Are you the official mayor or unofficial mayor of Seabrook?
We're actually going to have a race soon for mayor, and they're going to be dogs, because I don't want to be the mayor. And what Seabrook is really about is just, not taking ourselves too seriously. This is a place where people want to have fun, relax, chill out. One of the things that I like the most is that, you have people from, everything's so political these days. And this is a place where everybody can come together and just get along and have fun. They all have something in common, which is they love the beach. They love the community, the town. And that's one of the things that we're really proud of.
So yeah, and I did notice that you're the CEO, the SEAEO of Washington. So
yeah.
But the structure of the town, you've got homes for sale, you've got homes for rent, and there's a mixture of both. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like? You can come and stay, you can buy.
So this is actually really unique nationwide, in that, everybody knows about, Airbnb and VRBO. And if you do your homework, that almost every town is trying to stop, Leavenworth and Cannon Beach and Walla Walla. They're all trying to figure out ways to prohibit short-term rentals or vacation rentals. And we actually built the infrastructure from the ground up and put things together in a way where people that live here full-time and part-time, or actually are guests, they can live in a very harmonious environment. So we don't have the big problems with garbage and parking and parties, things like that, because we have so many eyes on it, and we have everybody on the ground. Where if you're renting a house in like Leavenworth or Cannon Beach, those management companies, they have houses scattered all over the place. So it's really hard to manage when it's all separated. Here, we're all in one place. And so we can, it's a much higher level of quality and management, primarily because of the convenience that it's all in, it's all under kind of one roof.
Right.
So yes, people can purchase a house, and some people purchase it for full-time living. So we have about 15% that live here full-time.
Okay.
And then the second group of people, they just buy it as a vacation home and they kind of live here part-time. And that's really, again, changed a lot since the pandemic.
Right.
Because again, like, it's a lot more compelling to own a vacation home today than it was before the pandemic, because we have, I describe it as a longer leash. The offices still want us to come in, but we can take a 3-4 day weekend and it's not a big deal, where it used to be kind of a big deal. And then the third type of buyer is using it as a part-time vacation home, but then they're putting it in our rental program. So about half the homes here are actually in our rental program, and they do really well. They generate a lot of income, and that helps subsidize people's home ownership of a second home. And so that kind of gives you an idea. I mean, we have one homeowner that's bought their 4th house. Like, they have one for themselves and they actually rent 3 of them out. That's more uncommon. What this place is really about is we want homeowners that are going to be a part of the community, whether they rent or don't rent.
Right.
And people are pretty passionate about the place and protecting their community here.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess what you just touched on there is, so what you talked about is essentially Seabrook manages all of the rentals. So Seabrook, Washington, Seabrook Land Company, however, but from the outside facing in, it's Seabrook, the company that manages the sale, the rentals, cleaning as well.
Yeah. So Seabrook Land Company, we're a real estate developer.
Yep.
We're a contractor, so we build the houses. We're a hospitality company. We're also a retail management company. We own most all of the retail, or control the retail and manage the retail. And our job is to curate the best businesses. I'll use the example that Coco's, the place you ate at. I mean, those are former Cactus executives.
Okay.
That ran that place. So it's not a surprise the food is really good. We have four canless executives that just moved out here to open businesses. One was the stew chef at Canless. So we take food and we take our businesses very seriously. So our job is to curate and get the best, most talented people out here to start up businesses and create their own story. We don't want it to feel like this corporate run kind of town. Where we're like running each business. And that's what a lot of like hotel resorts are. They're the restaurants and they're the gift shops, and they kind of do everything. We want this to be a place where you have individually curated businesses, and that's what we've been doing now for 20 years. But only half the town center is built right now.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. You said about a quarter of Seabrook is built out for the vision that you have in play, right? So you've got 700 total acres.
Yep.
700 total acres already acquired. And then is the 250 original acres, or is that all built out already?
For the most part, yes.
Okay. So then but you said only half of the retail is there. So you'll add 1,500 plus more homes, and then a whole other separate retail area as well.
Yeah, so the town center of Seabrook is half complete.
Yeah.
Now, when you jump, and it's hard to do without a map, but when you jump down to the south, we're building an entirely new town called Pacific Grove. Now, we haven't started that yet, but we will, and that will have its own distinctive retail district as well. So the basic principles of building a town is, number one, meeting the basic needs within a walking distance or bike riding distance within a 5 to 10 minute walk. So, for example, my daughter rides her skateboard or bike to school, and it's like literally right out my window. Like I can see her school from right here, which sounds like a fantasy land, but that's the way it used to be.
Right.
And we're, 4 or 5 blocks from, we live 4 or 5 blocks from here. So each town will have its own distinct look and design, and everything here is using Northwest vernacular architecture, which is like from Port Townsend and Astoria and Aberdeen and Hoquiam. And actually a lot of our retail town center buildings, my favorite buildings are in Capitol Hill. Like I'm always studying buildings in Capitol Hill and all these other great old towns. And
Sure.
I'll take pictures of buildings or houses, and then we usually design buildings that actually have those same architectural details, and then we redesign the interior to fit our programming needs.
Okay. Are your homes, are they models, or are they custom built?
So 90% of the people come in and they buy pre-designed houses that we have designed, using our own architecture team. And then we bring a lot of different architects out to also, collaborate with us.
Yeah.
And so most people, they want just like a turnkey solution. Like, here's my budget, this is my timing, and we work around that.
Right. Okay. Well, and you just kind of slid in that you're building another town. So what's that one called? Pacific what?
Pacific Grove. So that's to the south. Like I can see it out my other window. Yep. It's a whole nother bluff. Did you see the Sandpiper, that oceanfront motel?
Yeah, I think
so.
Oceanfront
motel. So that's our property goes down to the Sandpiper, and it's that whole bluff behind it. It's several hundred acres.
Okay.
And that will be anchored by a new beachfront, boutique hotel. And it's going to have more of a wellness focus. If you've been to the Post Hotel in Leavenworth, which is honestly world class, I've been to a lot of great hotels, and it is a world class hotel in our backyard. And we see us having an equivalent of that, but looking over the Pacific Ocean.
Interesting.
With a real spa element. And yeah, it's just every day we're designing new neighborhoods, new villages. To the other direction, more towards Pacific Beach, we have what's called Makers Square that we're designing right now. And Makers Square also has its own retail district and about 700 homes. And it will actually have glass blowers, woodworkers, potters. It's experiential retail, so people will be able to walk and watch these craftspeople, making goods. And there'll also be a communal space where you can actually take classes and learn, from metalworking to, again, woodworking to ceramics and beyond. So it's an art. I mean, it truly is an art, and we've been trained by the best people in the business, which are, again, from down in Florida. And they started this movement, and we're just really good. We're sponges. Just learning, growing. And we all have a growth mindset here, and have things to learn every single day.
Oh, that's amazing. So have the Pacific Grove and the other one, have they started yet, or are those still?
No.
Okay. What do you anticipate? Is that next 5-10 years?
Yeah, we want to, things are definitely accelerating out here, and that's just because we're in this new world, right? So Seabrook is really well positioned for this new world. And that's why our full-time home ownership is increased. But there's some real game changers for living out here, are things that we lack right now that are about to change. And one of them is like a major grocery store. So we have a 12,000 square foot grocery store, again, literally like right out my window, and across the street. And then and we actually hired the same guys that design metropolitan markets and PCC markets. So it's going to be a beautiful grocery store. And then it has an 80s retro arcade down below for guys like you and me that live in the 80s. And I was kind of a video game junkie. That's why I had bad grades. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then so getting a grocery store is huge.
Yep.
An urgent care clinic, a medical facility out here, that's also in the works in the next 12 months. That should be in place. And then the third one is expanding our school. We actually have a Montessori school, okay. And we're going to be expanding that into more of a farm school, which is where kids are actually outside more. They're doing more projects outside, more hands-on learning. There's some great examples of that around the country, and so we're always looking for models. We don't want to reinvent anything. We're always looking for models to learn from and mimic.
Yeah, that's great. So then Seabrook, what do you go up to high school, or what grade do you?
It's just K through 6 right now, but we do want to have a middle school and high school out here as well.
Okay. And will that all so it sounds like with these other towns or villages that are being created, will the bigger area be in the Seabrook area, or is it all just kind of spanning together into one big area?
Yes. I mean, yes. So Seabrook will always be like the major retail district, because it's in the center of these other two towns. Yep. And you know what? So there's kind of different levels of urbanity or urban design. There's like metropolitan cities, and that's usually, well, metropolitan cities are lots of towns overlaying, and then eventually one area like this, downtown Seattle, right? Like one area emerges with skyscrapers and larger buildings, and they usually tear down all the older buildings. I mean, downtown Seattle used to look like Capitol Hill. Sure. That's like more old Seattle, Pioneer Square. But then again, Seattle just became so big, they just started going up. But Seattle is, again, it's Queen Anne, it's Madison Park, it's Ballard. So we're not building Seattle out here. I don't want to like make people think that, but it'll be 3 distinctly different towns that complement one another. And they blend together, and they'll be interconnected.
Okay, and this is the total of 700 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's just kind of one big landmass, but then 3 different experiences that all complement each other. So.
Right. So again, everything is built at a pedestrian scale, where you feel silly getting in your car because it was so convenient to just like hop on a bike or walk, that you don't get in your car. So the best way to see this place is actually on foot. So at the end of this, I'm going to invite you to come out and spend the weekend. And so you can actually experience it as a pedestrian, because when you walk it, it's much different. I'm glad you liked it in the car, but wait till you walk it and start biking around town. That's when it really sings.
Well, so my wife is originally from Germany, and that's one of the things that she really liked when we were driving around was look at all the walkways and the communal fireplaces, stacked with firewood, and just really interesting spaces for people to gather and run into each other and so forth. So and we just kept driving around. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go back to the campground, because I said, look at this place. I'm like, let's just leave the camper there and move in here.
Yeah, well, maybe this will get you out of having to camp again. But yeah, so again, people from European countries and old cities, old villages, like they appreciate this a lot more. I mean, the West, we really spread out when we came west as pioneers. And although the best towns on the West Coast are Bozeman, Montana, Park City, La Jolla, Laguna Beach, Carmel, they were all designed pre-automobile. So they were all designed to be very walkable, very bikeable. And so we're just going back to that. I mean, we're not really doing anything special here.
Sure.
People feel like it's special because we haven't done it for so long, but this is what we used to do. And we're just bringing it back into, this is like, a town of the future, or whatever you want to call it. And, it's very traditional architecture where Maker's Square is going to be more modern. It's not about the traditional architecture. It's more about the land plan and the walkability and designing streets in a way where cars move very slowly. And that's, again, thinking about your wife, being from Germany, like you can't zoom around here in your car intentionally because it's made so pedestrians can walk around safely and kids can ride bikes around safely. You have to use common sense, but it's a very uncomfortable place to drive around by design.
Sure.
And it's a very comfortable place to walk around and bike around by design.
Well, I was super impressed when you stumbled upon it. So I really appreciate you taking the time, sharing a little bit of your story. And did I read right that Sunday mornings people can come and walk the town with you? Is that something that still goes down?
No, it's Saturday mornings, and I do that in the summer. I do it in the summertime.
Okay.
I usually, so anybody that wants to do one of those, check in with our sales office. But I think the main thing is if you're someone that hasn't been out here, just rent a house for a weekend, check it out.
Yeah.
What people come for the ocean, just to see the Pacific Ocean and walk on the beach, but they come back for the town. It's the town that resonates with them. I mean, same thing with Cannon Beach. People go down there, they think it's the ocean, but it's actually, they love the main street and the shops and the restaurants, the urbanity of it, or the built environment side connected to that natural environment. So Seabrook is very similar in that way. So it's a great place just to hang out. And having Olympic National Park also in our backyard, it's a great base camp for exploring Lake Quinault, Ruby Beach, up in the national park. It's a good day trip, easy day trip.
Well, Casey, I really appreciate you taking the time. You for sure are future driven, my friend. So I look forward to seeing the town quadruple in size because you're only 25% of the way there. So thanks so much.
Hopefully I'm still alive when it's all done.
Well, I'm excited to come out and shake your hand when I'm there next time. And I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much, Casey.
Thanks a lot, Adam. Appreciate it.